Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into Sims Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, we are reviewing Ballad of Falling Dragons today. I did not love this book as much as I love When the Moon Hatched. Oh, remember, I sing that book's praises. I still sing that book's praises. I just read it for my book club that I host at Barnes & Noble, Fort Lauderdale. I absolutely love When the Moon Hatched. But this one was a struggle for me. And I think I figured out why. So, it wasn't until I was reading book 2 that I realized book 1, you can divide that book in half. Like, that first half of it, literally, the first half of it is very much epic high fantasy. And then the last half of it is romantasy, where the story kind of takes a shift and focuses heavily on the romance aspect of the story, which is fine. I think the diary entries helped break up the pacing a lot and gave a little bit more depth to the relationship between Kaan and Raeve, right? No issues with it. This one, however, that first half of it is romantasy. I have nothing against romantasy, clearly. I read a lot of romantasy. But here's my issue with that. There's so much more going on in the story that I wanted more. Like, I don't like it when the stories focus so heavily on the romance aspect, especially when you've already built up and established a really interesting world with a really interesting mythos and gods, you know. I don't mind it. However, I do think that romance just takes away from it. I read it at a much, much slower rate, that first half of it, because the more interesting story, parts of the story for me were Veya and Khazari and the Scavenger King. All of the other point of views. I do like the journey that Raeve goes on. I do like that we get answers to who the other is. I like that we are getting answers that were to questions raised in the first book. So we're not left hanging. I like that she's finally coming to terms with her trauma, but it is a slow journey. No one just recovers from trauma like, oh, let me just face this. It's a slow, believable journey for Raeve, right? And I like how she allows herself to finally be vulnerable at times, especially with Kaan, she is not Nivon. She is not who she used to be, She is definitely not the same person. Raeve very much is her own person. And I think it's interesting to see her come to terms with her past life, before she was a toy of the Scavenger King, before she broke out of that and, hunts all the bad bastards. And there was more to her. And she's seeing, like, wow, I had this whole life that was also filled with trauma, but it also had some healing, beautiful moments to it as well. So I liked her journey. And I liked seeing her grow and develop as a character. But there's so much more that's going on in the story that I think the romance aspect was just a little distracting for me, especially for that first half. It's like, okay, I get it. Kaan, you love her. I get it already. Like, I understand. I wanted more, So I was like, really, like, and there weren't things like the diary entries to break up the pacing for me, We've had our diary entries. They're done with, they don't exist in this book. The only things we have are, Khazari and Veya. We have those interesting aspects to the story. But it wasn't enough to break up the pacing of the romance. It just kind of made me more annoyed with the romance because clearly, like, there's so much more going on that I need you guys to, like, resolve your shit. And just resolve it already. But once I got over halfway point again, it became all about, epic fantasy, with the romance involved in it as well, but it wasn't as distracting because the pacing was picking up. The story was developing. You know, we've got the prophecy, we have the Scavenger King point of views, right? Pyrrhus, a lot of like, what the fuck moments, and plot twists I didn't see coming. So there was a whole lot happening more in that second half of the book that I was able to like just speed through it. The first half was a little bit of a struggle, but that last half of it, I flew through it because that last half was more focused on the story versus the romance, where that was all kind of like in the first half of the book, just like with the first book, it was all in that second half of the book. So I still enjoyed it a lot. 4.5, solid 4.5. I just didn't love it as much as the first book. That ending though, what the fuck? I need a status on book 3. I just need a status on book 3. Please. For the love of God. I waited 2 years. I better only have to wait 2 years. This better not be some Kingdom Hearts bullshit where I have to wait 12 years, okay? Just don't do that to me. I can only wait so long for the things that I love. But I still enjoyed the book. I'm still gonna get multiple copies, for sure. For sure, dude. I have like 5 copies of the first book. The original paperback, which was sent to me by the publisher, which was the whole reason I read it in the first place, because I was like, I don't know if I want to read this. It had dragons, but it was TikTok trending, and I get really iffy with TikTok trending books, because 9 times out of 10 they tend to disappoint me. But then you get the ones that don't, like this one. I have the Waterstones edition. I have the Deluxe edition. I have the Fairy Loot edition and Litjoy edition. And I have a bookish box version that's on its way. And if Owl Crate doesn't, I'm gonna get a fucking Owl Crate. And if a Limerick doesn't, I'm gonna get a fucking Limerick Crate. I'm psychotic, okay? I get it. I have a problem. But regardless, I will get multiple copies of book 2 so that I can have like matching sets. I liked it, I just didn't love it. I love the journey that Raeve goes on. I love her character development. I just wish... I get why romance was a big part of the story. I understand why. Right, I understand why. That's just not my favorite thing about stories. I do think their romance is well written. I will say that. I feel like if you're going to put a romance in the story, you better have it fucking well written. I hate books where they have the romance in there and it's just like rushed or insta-love, or it's just like doesn't add anything to the story. Like, I hate that so much. It's like, if you're going to do the romance in the story, if you're going to add a romance to the story, make it have substance. And it does have substance, you know? Romance is just not my always go-to genre, you know? It's just not my favorite. I appreciate when authors do it right, like Sarah Parker definitely does it right, especially with this book. So I understand why the romance aspect is so heavily in that first half of the book, because it does tie into Rave's journey and her healing journey as well, and because she has to reconnect to her past self in order to truly heal all the trauma that's in her. Because remember, she has the other is it was really interesting to discover how the other came about though. But I understand why it just really slowed down the pacing of the story for me, and that's what I didn't like, unfortunately. So 4.5 stars, solid 4.5. I'm excited to see especially after the ending, I am excited to see what's going to happen in the next book. In any case, thank you all for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.